Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Omega Files. I'm your host, Dr. Freedom, and tonight we've gathered around to sit down and talk about something that happened way back in 1965. For all you guys who are referring to about the quote-unquote Doctor Who movie, well, it turns out there was a couple more of them before that. We're talking, of course, about Doctor Who and the Daleks. And let me go around. Let's introduce the panel first before we get into it. Let's start with Harry.
Greetings, one and all. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, Matt Rose.
Oh, hello.
William.
Hey now, how you doing, everybody?
AJ.
Howdy-ho.
Tim.
Hey there.
And joining us back from a long time gone, McKnowledge.
Hello, it's good to be here again.
And of course, also back from has not been here for a while either, Alex. How's it going?
Hello. It feels so weird being on this Zoom thing, and there's more people than I can see at any one time, and I'm so confused. But hey, everyone, it's good to be back. My only problem is I assumed that Morris would be here, but I haven't spoken to him in ages. I thought he'd jump at this one.
Well, like I said, he's been busy. Well, like I said, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Okay, let's start with opening thoughts. We'll start with, let's just throw the order around a little bit. Let's start with AJ. What's your opening thoughts on Doctor Who and the Daleks, 1965?
It wasn't too bad of a movie. It sort of stuck more or less to the original storyline. I did not like the whole thing of Ian being a bumbling idiot. That was just wasn't cool with me. But other than that, it was all right. Yeah,
I can understand that too. It was a bit of a thing. He was kind of like the comic relief of this movie. He was stumbling around and bumping into more stuff than Dick Van Dyke ever did. Oh man. Okay, let's flip over to Texas Tim.
Well, that's the first time I've really seen it all the way through. I'd seen bits and pieces of it years ago, but never really bothered to sit down and watch it. I enjoyed it very much for what it was. It was like a B movie from the 60s. And I really didn't have a problem with the Ian thing. I thought that was just kind of like how they presented it. They were telling the same story. They just, shook things up a little bit. His name was Doctor Who, and he had two granddaughters, Barbara Who and Susan Who. So, I mean, it was just a whole different thing, a whole different spin on the same story. But I thought it was very entertaining to watch.
It was pretty fun to watch. Yeah, I'll give it that. It's always fun to see Peter Cushing, especially taking on such a role. Unfortunately, just as a side note, they were going to put the posters for the two movies up in the Doctor Who, alleged 50th anniversary special, but they had rights issues. They were going to have them in the unit vault, and basically they're going to play it off that somebody had somehow gotten access to the unit files and had made these movies based off that.
Oh, I thought it was the real Ian and Barbara sold the rights to the movie. So that's what I heard.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's go with you next, Alex. What was your opening thoughts on this one?
Well, I grew up with this. I remember it was on one Easter Sunday when I was 5 or something. Because I grew up in the Colin Baker and Chester McCoy eras. So it was to me, this was the original Doctor Who, these two films. And it's got those differences. It's called TARDIS, not the TARDIS. It kind of comes across. It should be called My Granddad Built a Time-Space Machine in his shed, because it is a different concept in that. And it's called Doctor Who. Barbara. I think Barbara in this has a lot less character as well. Ian is the opposite, because Ian in the series is brave, clever. He's kind of more of a hero in a way. To make him the comedy relief and to put in the supposed romantic interest for no reason. That those are no disrespect to the late Roy Castle, but I definitely, this was, as a kid of about 5 or 6, this is one of the things that cemented me as a Doctor Who fan. But as an adult, I'm such a big fan of 60s television Doctor Who that I see the TV versions of the Daleks and Dalek Invasion of Earth as masterpieces in a way that this isn't. This is fun for kids during the holidays, but it's good fun for kids during the holidays, and you get gooey nostalgia. It's got a great cast, and let's not forget that Barry Ingham, who played Alidon in this version, died only a few months ago, I think. He's also Paris in The Mythmakers.
Oh, AJ, we just got blasted. Okay, let's move on.
Sorry.
Let's go with McKnowledge. What was your opening thoughts on this movie?
There are some things I liked, but there are also a lot of things that are not good and don't make sense about this movie. So overall, I didn't like the movie, and I think it is a bad movie. You can maybe show it to your kids if you have them and want to get them into classic Who, but it's not good in my opinion.
All right, William, you're next. What do you think?
It is a movie of its time because it came out, like you said, it came out in the 60s. It did borrow heavily from the TV episode that it's made from. Even though the Doctor Who, the story starts on Earth, it never mentions is he a human being or something else. It's never mentioned that. Yes, I know the Ian character called him Doctor Who, but we never mentioned that for somebody who had that kind of knowledge to be able to create a TARDIS like that. We don't know is he a human or maybe somebody from the future timeline. Also, the watching this movie made me question something about Susan, since which is and in this movie, because if you notice, the Doctor has two granddaughters, which is Susan and Barbara, and in the TV series just Susan, which always questioned me. Whatever happened in this movie and in the TV episode is based on, whatever happened to Susan's parents at all. You know, it's never mentioned, if they passed away or anything like that the Doctor was raising her. So that made me, that's a good question. I wish somebody could answer. The Daleks was excellent in color in this movie. I mean, it was great to see them in color. And I think that was used later on in a future episode, TV episode, which it was good to see that. Like I said, it is something made from the 60s. Unfortunately, since the TV series was not shown here yet in the United States, not many people was able to understand the movie was based on a TV series. So the big let's say the Dalek mania that happened over in England didn't happen over here for a couple of more years. So the movie over here I don't think it made a lot of money.
Yeah, one of them was fixed up, and it was turned into a quote-unquote one of the Supreme Council. It appeared in Planet of the Daleks later. But, yeah, it was kind of weird, seeing it on set, because I didn't even realize it until years later. And when I looked it up, I'm like, oh, my gosh, wait a minute. That's from the movies? Oh, well. Okay, your take, Harry.
I thought it was actually a pretty decent movie. I mean, mind you, I had not, I first saw this movie, I had not seen the Hartnell Dalek stories. I'd heard about them, but I had not seen them at the time I first watched this movie. And I thought, this is not bad. I mean, okay, it's 1960s, but still, it's not bad. But then when you compare it to the Hartnell Dalek material, you see it comes across almost like comic relief to an extent, especially the way Barbara and Ian come across. They come across very much as comic relief. Susan comes across as second in brain power only to her grandfather, Doctor Who.
Yeah, I actually know somebody who thought that these films were spoofs until I told him otherwise.
I can see how someone might see them that way, because they are a bit more lighthearted. But it was the first time we had, saw the Daleks and whatnot in color. Even though it wasn't on the TV program, but it was kind of nice to see them in color. Also, the other big difference is even when they're just running around, their lights are blinking on and off like they're signaling a turn or something. Like they got their hazards on. I don't know. Okay, let's run over. Matt, what was your opening thoughts on this one?
Well, I saw this a few years back, and I was just really surprised. It was Peter Cushing playing the Doctor in this. I thought, wait, isn't that Grand Moff Tarkin from Star Wars? Because that was the first time I'd seen the film, was a few years ago, and absolutely just loved it. I think it's just really a fun film, and as mentioned, it's the Daleks' first time in colour. What's really sad is that I did a little looking into this, that there was supposed to be an audio series based on the films that was supposed to have followed with Peter Cushing and Roberta Travovi, or reprising their roles as Doctor Who and Susan. But unfortunately, the scripts and the audio recordings got lost from the BBC archives. So sadly, their stories are as lost as the Daleks' master plan and Power of the Daleks, unfortunately. I love this film, and it's just really fun, but the biggest gripe I had was the TARDIS interior, because when you look at it, you can see on the outside when they go out, the lights are off, the lights are on when they go in the TARDIS. It's a bit 50-50
Why
for
not
me.
put frosted glass, like a proper police box, for God's sake?
Yeah, it was kind of like a fridge.
Other than that, I've really enjoyed the film, and the fowls were better dressed than when they were in the episode this was based off.
Also, yeah, it was kind of like, it was a fridge. Whenever they were opening up the TARDIS to go into it, the light would come on. Then they close it, the light would go off. I got a kick out of that. Yeah, they could have used frosted glass, but at the same time, you got to remember, I think a lot of the differences, the reason why they never stated where Peter Cushing's rendition came from and whatnot, is because of rights issues and whatnot. They couldn't use anything that would resemble what was on the actual TV show. They got away with what basically Terry Nation wrote. That's what he sold, and I think he only sold it for he said only made, what was it, like 500 pounds? Anyone remember?
But they still got the Raymond Cusack Dalek dimensions, though, and they're still made by Shawcraft, aren't they? So they could have been completely different Daleks from the script. Very vague description that Terry Nation actually gave. But I think mainly it's budget, because this was Aru, which is basically the same company as Amicus, who made those horror films, and they will run from a trailer in a business center. This was more.
That's funny to hear. Plus, obviously, I was just looking. Does anyone know what the box office figures were for this movie? I know it cost them like 180,000 pounds.
Yeah, back then, but you got to remember over here. I don't know how much money it made in the United States. Remember, that was in the 60s. But remember, Doctor Who was not being shown here yet, so that's why. A lot of people thought of it as a kids' movie. You could say it might have been because it wasn't. It didn't want to go into the darkness of it from the TV show.
It is basically a kids' movie.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got out of it. It's meant to be a fun.
It did make money overseas. It made its money back and then some. So that's why they made the sequel. But I don't think it made them. I don't know how much it made in the United States back then.
Okay, now I'm assuming everybody here at one time or another, say within the last few years, has seen the Hartnell serial of the Daleks.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I know them all very, very well.
Okay, because I know it's been a few years for me, but I don't know. How do you think it compares? Because in a way, the Hartnell version being in black and white, it made it that much more eerie for me. Plus, it was a bit long. It was a lot longer than this when you take all of them put together.
How many episodes was the Hartnell story? 6, right? Yeah,
6.
I think it's 7.
I think the black and white kind of added to the atmosphere of it, especially when you're in that desolate London, and they're running around in those empty streets, and it's the black and white just adds kind of the eeriness, kind of like like the Night of the Living Dead kind of feel. It's.
Yeah, if I could just add, I don't think there's any really point in comparing the two. Yeah, this movie is based on that story, but their whole reasoning for being is entirely different. This is Saturday cinema, fun movie for kids compared to what was a pretty serious, grim serial on TV 2 years before. So I would say, it's the same story, but I mean, it's obviously a different approach, a different audience.
Okay. All right, let's go one by one on this one. Let's start with Harry. Harry, what were your favorite scenes in the movie?
I to say my favorite scene in the movie is my favorite scenes would basically be when they realize that the doctor has had them by saying he's needed to go into the city to get the mercury, and then it turns out he never needed the mercury in the first place. He just wanted to go exploring. And then when they find out this time they do need to go in the city because if they don't recover the fluid link, they're stuck. That's probably, I'd have to say, some of the best stuff in the movie.
Okay, Matt, what was your favorite scenes in this movie? You got to unmute.
Oh, sorry. One of my favorites is when they actually turn up in the TARDIS, and then you just see Barbara all over Ian, and then they just take off by accident, and they realise what's happened. I was just laughing. Oh, Ian, why did you have to stand near that? And I was just laughing at that. I also did like when they arrived on Skaro, because it was just such a dark and eerie atmosphere. I really liked that. That really recaptured the feeling of the Daleks.
I have a question about that. Did they ever mention the planet Skaro in the movie? I don't remember hearing the word Skaro at all. Just the
I don't think it's mentioned until the second movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nice. I also liked when the Daleks first appeared. I think, if I'm trying to remember, the Doctor was with Susan, and then you just get swarmed by an army of Daleks with extinguishers. They could just shoot out of them. I just laughed at that. No ray guns, just extinguishers.
It was supposed to be flamethrowers, and they thought that fire would be too scary for kids.
Yeah, it was too violent to show fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand where they were coming from with that. Mine personally was when quick, stop the countdown, and then Ian just jumps up and goes, "Hey, Daleks!" and they all turn around and shoot the panel. That was
Yeah. There's a shortcut that this film takes to make it an hour and a quarter, which, as you say, a lot shorter than the TV version. There's loads that they cut. Really, to be honest, that all the kind of philosophy and the ethical debates and stuff like that go on in the TV version. And this is kind of like you're almost meant to just assume the Daleks are bad guys the second you lay eyes on them. There's no question. It's just, of course, they don't look human, so of course they're the bad guys, rather than anything clever where you might have been wondering about it and
Also, mentioning that, there was one other thing this movie did that they didn't do in the other serial.
They didn't kill no humans.
No. When they took the Dalek creature out, and you actually saw that little hand come out.
Oh, in color, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
yes, in color, but it's seen still in the original.
So it's just like, and it was puffing, and it was moving, and then went, yeah, I love that bit. Okay, you next, William.
My favorite scene, of course, was Susan going back to the TARDIS to get the medication from the radiation sickness everybody was getting, which was pretty good. The only thing that confused me right there when she went in, how the dolls was able to open the TARDIS and go in. I mean, to walk in. I thought you needed the key to go in the TARDIS. I know in the TV show you need a key. I said that you mean anybody anywhere from this movie could walk in the TARDIS and use it without nobody knowing it? I said, yeah, you got to do some security on that.
Well, this is
Yeah, kind of a frightening thought there. Yeah.
it's a version of the TARDIS that the guy built in his backyard. It's a different canon.
Mm-hmm. Also, I liked the way these Daleks was built in color, and you had different ones with the suction and the claw hand, which was pretty cool. We always say that they should make or show more different looking Daleks than the special weapons Dalek that was shown in the Sylvester McCoy episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Daleks with the grippers. I thought that was very nice innovation they did for it. Plus, you actually see them during the course of the movie flipping switches and things like that on panels. You didn't see that in the original serial. You just had those little, touchy-feely controls for the sucker, whatever things they were, the plungers. Okay, let's move on to AJ. What was your favorite parts?
Overall, I think the part where Ian more or less got to be brave like he was in the TV show, to me it sort of felt like they were going back to the TV show for a minute and then they went off again with comical relief. But overall, of him being you know, the hero of the hour sort of thing, where he jumps up, goes, like you said, "Hey Daleks," and then dives down, and they all shoot the panels and explodes.
Oh, okay. What about you, Tim? What was your favorite part?
I don't really have one. It's just, you know, it's like a fun romp movie. You just kind of like chill and watch it. I mean, I kind of dug the whole thing. I like the differences though that some of us have mentioned so far. Like Matt was talking about when they first see the Daleks. It's the reverse of what they have on the TV serial, because instead of Barbara meeting them first, and you don't know what it is till next week, this time they meet the Doctor and Ian first, and Susan. I think that Susan was a little bit more effective having a younger girl playing the part, whereas it was less convincing on television. I mean, because you had a 22-year-old playing a 15-year-old or something. But yeah, for the most part, I enjoyed the film.
I agree with you. I think it made that scene where she's running through the woods even more creepier. You know, with it being a younger girl than with, you know, when it was Susan. I think that made it creepier to me. It just woo.
She's a great little actress too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's, I think, the only one other than Peter Cushing who made it into the second movie.
Mm.
Yeah. So, okay. You up next, McKnowledge. What were your favorite parts, if any?
I liked the part when they attacked the first Dalek in their quarters, in their room where they were kept with the cape and everything. That's the only part in the movie where I actually felt something for the characters, and that scene is way better than the scene after it when they're just throwing Daleks into walls and they just explode. So.
Okay. What about you, Alex?
Oh, it's tricky. I mean, a lot of the good points, like Susan going off back to the TARDIS through the forest, that was also done equally well, if differently, in the TV version. Yes, I know I'm comparing again, because then they had the cliffhanger and everything. But I certainly, as a kid, I was that, and there are lots of great scenes, like where they're being kept captive, and I suppose the really pivotal scene is where Ian gets punched in the face, and you have that line, "You see, you will fight for something." And when this was first released in the Dalek box set on Region 2 DVD, everybody's copy had sound that up on that scene. And like, seriously, that's the scene where the sound... Oh, sorry, I dropped the F-bomb, sorry. But to be honest, I think when you look at the things that they could do in this film that they didn't have the budget to do in the TV version, the way that the mountain actually opens up and the Thal falls through it, that's not in the TV version, so I'll go with that. So particularly when they've got an on-screen death toll of 2 humanoids in the entire film, because they saved the guy who cut the rope. He dies in the TV version. So I think, yeah, I thought it's cool how when I saw the TV version for the first time, I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have the mountain opening up. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bit crazy, though, when they're back there and they're in that swamp. And Ian just popped up and goes, "I saw something moving in the water. We need to move on. I'll go back and get water." Wait a minute. Didn't you just... Why are you going back for the water, man? And then, of course, they go back and all they see is that bubbling water is he's been sucked under by something. Oh, man. Oh. Okay, so all in all, yeah, it's a pretty fun romp. It's a fun watch. Sure, if you're a diehard, it must be canon type fan, you're going to go, "Oh, the TARDIS looks like it was built at Radio Shack." Or even worse, did anyone else notice the fluid link looked like one of those little like glitter batons you used to be able to buy at the store for little girls?
Yeah. They had glitter inside.
That's probably what it was.
Or if you really want to laugh, the Daleks were really into it. How many of you noticed that they had lava lamps?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, because lava lamps are used, so you just put them on an alien planet to make it look alien.
And didn't these Thals invent glam rock? I mean, with the way they
Oh, yeah, you noticed that?
No, what really scared me was the fact that the Thals really heavily resembled this person. Mimi from the Drew Carey Show. For those of you folks that aren't familiar with it,
I remember her.
And not to mention, how many here notice that the Thals We're all wearing fake eyelashes.
Yeah, Ian Simpson has been to Scarborough at some point.
But another great thing that did come out of this movie, how many noticed that Jenny Linden, I think, invented yoga pants like 30 years too early?
Wow.
Actually, the TV version of Firefall wears something similar to that.
Yeah.
At one
Still,
point.
it's a fun watch. You know, I still like to pop it onto the computer every now and then and just sit back, give it a look, see. All right, now let's go for characters. Was there any particular character that you liked above any other? Let's go with you, Harry. What was your favorite characters in this movie?
If I had to choose a favorite character, I'd say it would be Cushing's version of the Doctor. I mean, sure, the whole thing was done for laughs, but yet Cushing just seems to bring across a sense that you want to sit down, you want to understand where this man is coming from. He just comes across as the best person, in my opinion, for the whole movie.
Okay. What about you, Matt? What was your favorite characters in this movie?
Well, Harry just said the Peter Cushing version of the Doctor. That's one of my favourite characters. And Roberta Tovey as Susan.
I know, because I just suddenly remembered I had this picture, and it made me flash back, to a little something that happened back during that certain year. Well, back in 2013, when this popped up on my screen for the first time. Well.
Awesome. But actually, I like to imagine that if you're trying to put this in the canon, that this is the War Doctor taking a holiday from the Time War in a parallel universe.
I've heard a lot of different versions about how folks have tried to work it into the canon. But... Okay, let's go you, Alex. What was your favorite characters in this movie?
Oh, God, I like the Thals who speak. I think Barry Ingham as Aladon was very good. What do I think of the Peter Cushing Doctor or the 12-year-old Susan? It's so. I suppose I do like their dynamic. From the outset, I never forget the opening scene. How the kids are reading brainy science textbooks and he's reading a comic book. He's a big kid, but his 12-year-old granddaughter is a scientific genius. There's something sweet about that. It's corny, but it's cute. It works. So probably go with that pair because they do work well. It's sweet.
Okay, what about you, McNowledge? What was your favorite characters? I don't know about my favorite character, but I think I like what they did with the characters in that they're almost like the reverse of what we saw on the TV series. So William Hartnell's Doctor is serious at the start, and during the show he's learning how to be a more gentle grandfather figure. In this we have Peter Cushing, who is at the start very childlike and a loving grandfather, and he needs to learn how to be serious. In the series we have Ian, who is really the strong, serious character. In this we have a comic relief, Ian. And well, I liked those aspects of the characters.
Okay, I can see it. It was a little bit of a role reversal in some ways in this movie. Peter Cushing's Doctor being more aloof and being more childlike than Hartnell's was in the actual serial. So I can agree with you on that. Also, Ian, who's normally the serious guy in the original serial, over here, he is a diehard hero, but at the same time, he's not as serious as the Ian was we saw in the BBC serial. Okay, let's go with you, Tim, next. What was your favorite characters in this movie?
Yeah, I'd agree with everybody, the Doctor and Susan specifically, but I have to say that, it seems like Peter Cushing, this must have been quite a departure for him because he spends half the film, it seems like, kind of imitating William Hartnell sometimes, the way he talks, the way he reads his lines. But I mean, it's kind of a departure because he's known for doing so many horror movies, and this is just a light kind of kids film. So it's got to be a departure for what he was used to doing. But he does very well at it though, and he's very good as the doctor, and the little girl Toby that plays Susan, she's very good too. So I would say that was what I enjoyed the most character wise.
Okay, what about you, AJ?
Yeah, I have to agree with the others. Peter Cushing's Doctor was quite brilliant. I agree with Tim as well. I heard a lot of Hartnell in his voice when he was talking. I could definitely see that. The little girl, Susan, she was all right. I think the Daleks are a bit more. They had a bit more personality in this one, I think, as opposed to the other TV version where they were a bit more robotic. But other than that, it was an overly a good story, and the characters all pretty well done.
Okay, what about you, William?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Tim. What stood out, the two characters that stood out was the doctor and his granddaughter Susan. I got nothing against Ian, but you can tell by the beginning of the film that he was acting a little bit like a buffoon, especially the way Susan opened the door on him. He flew right in and hit the wall. So you could tell right there. You could tell that he's like a comical character used. I didn't hate him, but I knew it from that moment that's the way he was gonna be in the rest of the film. Even though he used it to get the Daleks to shoot the machine to stop the countdown. The funny thing is, Barbara, she hardly stood out in anything in the story wise, except for when she grabbed the monkey food and put it on the Dalek ice dog. And that's the only thing I remember from her that stood out. She really didn't do anything else, which was unusual considering how much the character did in the TV episodes.
I know, it looked like one big glob of like potted meat. Yeah. Right onto the ice stalker. Plus, it's like, I don't know how they were eating that stuff because the way it sounded like, it's like, wait a minute, you were eating this stuff? Oh, well. Okay, so anything anyone else want to bring up about the movies before we move on?
You was mentioning that they couldn't use the word like he's a Time Lord or Gallifrey or nothing like that.
Those words hadn't been invented yet.
They couldn't mention nothing. Yeah, or that he's not human or anything like that. But they only mentioned that, of course, Daleks and SKYPE because Cherry Nation created those. But how about the word TARDIS or Susan and Barbara like that? How would
I'm guessing all that was probably licensed, right? Just for them to use for this film.
I think there's another reason, why they refer to it as TARDIS, not the TARDIS, and they never broke down the anagram or anything like that.
He did say it.
Yeah.
When he was explaining it to Ian in time.
He did.
He did explain that. So I
think, time relative dimension space. He did say it, but he didn't. Yeah, Susan didn't say she invented it or anything like that.
No. That stood out.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask. I wonder for kids that saw this in the theater in '65. I wonder, since the Doctor changed on TV about a year later, did this make it in any way easier that a different actor was playing the lead part? I mean, because if you went, this must have been a real thrill to go see this in the theater in 1965. If you've been watching Doctor Who on TV and suddenly you get to go see it big and in color with widescreen and Daleks and but everybody's recast. So I mean, I just wonder if come a couple of years later on television when the actor changes into Patrick Troughton, I wonder if that made it easier or not. Like the idea that there's somebody else playing the part. I wouldn't know. I mean, I was a baby then, so.
I wasn't born yet.
Also, I was just checking the release dates. Okay, it says here it was released in the UK in August of '65, but it didn't make it to America until July of '66.
See?
So that's weird.
It wasn't at the time when the Hartnell was leaving?
Yeah.
And again, Doctor Who was not being shown yet in the United States.
That's interesting because the whole audience would have come to this film as just another science fiction movie with no knowledge of the series.
You didn't have to have any knowledge of the series, though. I'm guessing you could go into this blind and not know Doctor Who and still enjoy it for what it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maybe that's what they were aiming for, kind of, sort of. Maybe that's why they didn't really go into it either, other than rights issues. Maybe they wanted this to be wide open so anybody could just walk in and sit down and go, okay, this is a good movie, But it is. It's a really good movie. It's a fun watch. All right. Harry! Okay, let's go ahead and let's put this sucker to bed. Let's give it a rating, shall we? Let's start with Harry. Harry, out of 10, how would you rate Doctor Who and the Daleks?
I'd give it a 7.
Okay, 7 out of 10. Okay. What about you, Matt?
Thought it was, and I'm to enjoy it. I'll give it 9 out of 10.
All right, what about you, Tim?
Yeah, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. It's a fun B movie. It's a good way to pass an hour and a half. And since we are Doctor Who fans and we know the story, it's fun to just, watch a different version of it. Why not?
All right, what about you, AJ?
I'll give it a 7 out of 10, but the question is, why does Skaro have a moon like the Earth?
Because that's what they had on the map meetings, I think. I don't know.
But it's bigger than on Earth.
Oh, very true. I think it did appear bigger, didn't it? So
Yeah, but it still looked like the Earth's moon.
Well, at least it didn't hatch.
Well, maybe. Okay, but
Not yet.
But maybe we're assuming that that habitable planet needs to have a moon similar to the Earth because it
Hatch is an Emperor Dalek.
Okay, what about you, William? Out of 10.
I give this a 7 out of 10. It is a good B movie, and it's something the kids would enjoy watching.
Okay, McKnowledge, out of 10.
5 out of 10. Good for kids, but I didn't like it.
All righty. And how about you, Alex?
I'm probably biased because of my own nostalgia for watching this on VHS and over as a kid. It was one of those films for me, and imagining it being, a monster movie that, imagining being a kid in the mid '60s. I think this has got to be worth at least a 7. Yeah.
Okay, now the first time I was exposed to both these movies, because we're going to talk about the sequel next week, was we have a Friday night, or we had a Friday night, one of them local, hosted, movie shows. And
you mean like Chiller Theater and Fright Night, stuff like that?
Yeah, ours was Big Chuck and Little John. That's where I first saw that, was on Big Chuck and Little John one Friday night. And then a few years later, when I turned about, I think it was either 12 or 13, that's when I got exposed to the actual show. So I was like, okay, they're going to have Daleks. I kind of know what they're going to look like, kind of, sort of. So this was my kind of first exposure to Doctor Who, was through these movies. And I do remember watching them. You were sitting there with a bowl of popcorn. And if you're lucky, you stayed awake through the whole thing. It didn't matter how excited you were. It was a Friday night. You just been through school and blah, blah, blah. You weren't used to that kind of sleep schedule back then. Oh, well. So we've talked about it. We've rated it. And all I can say is let's go around and get goodbyes from everyone. All right, say goodnight, Harry.
Good night, Harry.
I knew you were going to do that. Okay, William.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for having me here.
All right, McKnowledge.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye. Good night.
All right, AJ.
Good night, everyone. Check under your bed for Daleks.
All right, Alex.
Night, and hope to see you next week.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, as always, thanks for having me. And yeah, I look forward to the sequel next week.
Okay, Matt Rose.
Good night. Looking forward to next week, and always keep a baseball bat ready for the Daleks.
On behalf of myself and the rest of the panel, enjoy the rest of your evening, and join us next week when we sit down and have a look at the sequel, Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. Until then, good night, everybody.